Welcome into Rounding the Bases.
Round the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. He's a man, goddamn.
Welcome into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Community America Credit Union. Indeed, I am Joel Goldberg. That is the voice of AY, who put that song together a couple of years back. Always a catchy little tune. Today, we've got a great podcast and a really cool story with a young, successful entrepreneur that is on the rise and doing amazing things quickly. The only thing worse than not knowing what needs to be done is knowing what needs done, but not knowing how to implement it. From that realization came a brand new company, a category of business that helps people achieve more than ever before. Marc Bernstein is the founder and CEO of Balto, which has redefined the way people and machines work together. Using the power of artificial intelligence, Balto eliminates uncertainties and improves performance for real-life professionals, providing an experience that is better than humanly possible. I had the chance to meet Marc recently, the way we all meet people nowadays, via Zoom, through a connection with my friend Barry Sandweiss, and he joins us right now on Rounding the Bases. Marc, how are you?
Joel, I am wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I love your story. I think I told you this when we talked too. I mean, to me, you're doing more in your 20s than a lot of people are able to figure out before they get into their 30s and 40s, and I know you're just getting started too. But before I get into the journey, because the journey never goes as planned, and I don't know that as you were going through, I believe, Wash U, you said, all right, I'm going to start Balto. But it evolved into that quickly and a lot of early success. Tell me first off about the company beyond the very basics that I gave.
Sure. So we invented a technology called Balto, and it is real-time guidance. For any of the folks out there who have been in sales and customer service, you've probably had an experience where you're having a conversation with your customer. And beforehand, you had an idea what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to say, questions you're supposed to ask, things you're supposed to bring up. And then you hang up the phone with the customer and you think to yourself, shoot, I totally forgot to do the things I was supposed to do. Happens to everybody. And we realized that knowing what you should do before the customer conversation is one thing. Actually doing it live while you're talking to customer is another. And what environment has tons of sales and customer service professionals having lots of customer conversations that need to remember these sort of things on every single interaction? And that's the contact center, where when you call in and you're talking to a sales professional or customer service professional, you want to make sure that they help you out, that they get it right, and they do it quick. So we invented real-time guidance that analyzes the customer conversation live while it is happening and gives the representative recommendations right there on their computer screen based on the conversation so they can be as effective as humanly possible.
So they're basically getting that instant live feedback on their screen that is, I suspect, going to take them away from that dreaded, like when we talk to somebody and you could tell that they're just reading one script that has been there forever and there's no real wiggle room. And then you're like, wait a minute, that's not quite what I was looking for. And they're confused.
Joel, exactly. In fact, we call Balto the anti-script. I say, take your script, rip it up, throw it away, get rid of your script. It's now about guide points. It's about talking points. And having just a couple of key things that you need to hit, or when a customer asks about pricing, not having to say, well, let me go find that 1 second, hold on, but instead having your pricing table pop up automatically right there for you. That's the sort of thing that we're giving. That's the power we're giving the sales and customer service professionals.
It's awesome. And look, everybody can relate to this on both sides too. The company certainly can relate to it. We all, as business owners, want great customer service. And then as the customer itself, how many of us have been on the phone completely frustrated? By the way, I got on, I won't say what airline, but I got on to change a flight that was coming up on my way to record this podcast today. And, I'm going through all the automated stuff so that they can patch me into the right person. And I give the flight number and it says, okay. And then it says, is this pertaining to this flight? Yes or no? And I say, yes. They say, we don't understand your answer. And I said, yes. Say it again. We don't understand your answer. Yes. Say it again. We don't understand. If you don't get the answer right this time, we're gonna have to hang up and you'll have to call us back. So, by the way, this is obviously running much later. I have not resolved that issue yet. But it's maddening. It's frustrating. But my point is, along with that absurd story, everybody has had that story in some form or another. Everybody can relate to this, I think, Mark.
It's frustrating on a human level because when we call in to a company, we expect them to take care of us. We say, we are your customer. We have given you money or plan to give you money. And there's some basic like contracts of decency that you expect that they're going to take care of you. And when you get feelings from that company that says, we're actually trying to not talk to you, we're doing everything we can to not talk to you. And if you talk to us, we're trying to have the fastest, lowest quality experience possible just to get you out the door. Imagine if you went to an Apple store and you walked in the Apple store and there's an Apple genius right there and they shoo you out of the Apple store as quickly as possible. That is what the sales and customer service world has been doing in the contact center. And now is the time it's actually starting to change.
It's fascinating stuff. Of course, at a time where we're living in an AI world, and I sit there and think, what will that look like a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? It's such an exciting time, especially as certain people, certain companies truly learn how to use this and figure it out. How did you get here? You went to WashU. I mean, it's a cool story. Maryland kid ends up at school in St. Louis, now running this successful company, not 30 years old yet. I assume when you left Maryland to come to the Midwest, you didn't have Balto in mind, or did you? I don't know.
No, not at all. When I went to WashU, one of the reasons I did is because I wanted to do pre-med. And, I grew up with parents telling me, all the time, you should be a doctor, you should be a doctor, you'd be such a great doctor. And I said, okay, well, I want to go to a school that has a great pre-med program, but I also love business. When I was in high school, I started a charitable investment organization. And basically we we raised money through fundraisers, and then we invested it in the stock market and tracked the stocks every single week. And then every year we would take the capital gains and just donate the proceeds to charity. So I knew I loved business, and I was trading stocks for quite some time. And then I started a personal training company when I was 18. That's when you can first get your first personal trainer certification. You can't do it as a minor. And I got a certification and said, well, great, I have the certification, but I have no one to train. So the business there was actually a necessity. And I said, well, let me go find some clients so I can apply this, this awesome new field of knowledge I've gotten. And quickly actually built out this business called Doorstep Fitness, personal training direct to your home office or local park. And I ran that for 5 years. So, but knowing that I was going into school, I said, I love business. I love pre-med. I want a program or a university that has strong programs in both. And WashU very much hit those criteria. So boom, transplanted out to St. Louis. And as I was graduating undergrad, I realized I love the organization building. I love to build. And I think that there are routes to build in medicine, but the ability to build in business, the opportunities are actually unlimited. So I had talked to an advisor of mine and said, when I graduate school, I know I want to build a company one day. What field should I go into first? And his recommendation, which was life-changing advice that I took, is he said, go into sales. Because if you're building a company, you're either going to be selling your first customers. You don't expect some salesperson to gallop across the line and come help you sell your customers for you. You're going to do it yourself. You're going to be selling investors to raise capital, or you're going to be selling talent to join your company and get excited by your vision, but you need to learn to sell. So I got into sales and technology sales here in St. Louis, and that's where I discovered the problem that Balto solved. I'd experienced it of going to my manager's office for coaching, getting great coaching, getting to the next call, and applying none of the things that I had learned 15 minutes ago. I was like, man, there's a problem here. This might be the time to go start something and fix it.
Right. It's almost like anyone that remembers being in class a lot longer ago for me than it was for you. And I might do well on a test. but I didn't necessarily remember any of it years later, if not hours later. And it was just like, okay, what am I? Oh, cool, that was interesting. Wait a minute, now what do I do? And so it's very clear to me. And you had told me this on our prep call when we met too, that you were learning a ton, so you were excited about that, but yet you didn't know how to apply it, as you said. So I mean, how do you get from there to Balto, which we'll talk about the very modest beginnings of Balto, as is the case with most startup companies. But how soon after that realization did you say, you know what, this is what I want to design?
I would say pretty soon, yeah, as in a couple months. But it wasn't because I said, let's go do this. It's because I was lucky enough to meet a co-founder who is, bull in a china shop, run through walls kind of guy. And, he for months said, Mark, we got to do this. Mark, we got to do this. I told, and he's our founder, COO, Chris Contes. I told Chris, no, I'm happy with my job. I want to stay here 3 times. And he said, Mark, if we don't do this thing, I'm going to go move to New York. And I said, he said, think about it over the weekend. And I said, okay, I'll think about it over the weekend. And I came back on Monday and said, Chris, I'm sorry, you got to move to New York. Can't do it. And he said, I was just bluffing, but let's see if we can start this thing. So I was lucky enough to have a co-founder that helped make that happen. But, because I had him in my circle, we started from concept to actually doing the planning and getting this thing scoped out and demoed and built in months.
So before I talk about the money that you raised and the pandemic challenges, let's, because I always like this from the beginning, talk about the number. It was what, 3 of you total paying a minimal amount of rent in a little bit of office space? Or tell me about day one.
Yeah. So day one, we left, our job at Top Ops, pipeline and forecasting technology, really, really great company. And the day after, the day that we left, we actually walked right across the street to a co-working station and set up a co-working office right there that day. It was, 3 guys in a room. The room was probably, I think, 75 square feet. And we paid $275 a month in rent. And I remember I told my stepmom right after we set up that office, how much the rent was, because she had seen the pictures, and she actually spit out her coffee. She couldn't believe that, it is that inexpensive to have a real dedicated office space with coffee and a bar and amenities and all that. So we started, setting that up. And then we kind of looked at ourselves and said, well, we have an office. We don't have a product yet. We have nothing to sell. So we need to get a product as fast as humanly possible so we can go demo this to people. And we can say, this is what we have in mind. Would you buy it? If you wouldn't buy it, what would you want to do differently? So we were able to incorporate the product feedback, real product feedback from the market right away. And that way we weren't having our friends and family, try it and tell us how great it was and tell us how good of a job we were doing, that it could be a big deal someday. It was people we were trying to sell this thing to saying, what you're making sucks. And then we say, all right, well, how could it be better? And they would give us very specific feedback that we would then incorporate and make better over time.
But there's a great lesson in sales there too. As much as it was all sales to you, you weren't at that point technically selling them the product, right? You were almost getting buy-in from them of, hey, okay, yeah, we may want to sell this to you. Help us design it. You've got a say in this thing. I'm curious about that, because I think anytime you lend people your ear, when you actually respect what they have to say, they're going to be interested.
Joel, I couldn't agree more. I think that one of the most underused types of sales interactions is a hypothetical sale. If you're coming into a sales interaction telling the person, this is perfect for you, this is going to solve your problems, I want you to buy it, will you say yes? People push back. They say, whoa, I want to make my own decision. But if you say, is there a world where you would buy this? Then usually people will say yes. And then you say, perfect, well, let's work together to see if we can make that world happen. It's a partnership. It's a collaboration. It's not pushy, and it puts the power in the buyer's hands. And that's one of the things that I think Some folks who have much older school sales methodologies have struggled to adapt to in these recent years, because nowadays buyers aren't letting you get away with that.
Yeah. It's such golden advice, and to me, it's really obvious, but it's just sometimes it's human nature, it's easy just to go right for that shiny object, right? And get right. We all want to get to the end without putting in the work, so to speak, of building this thing. And so you've done it and it worked. I mean, it's like, yeah, maybe you could have tried to fast track it. I mean, you guys obviously have been on a fast track, but you did it the right way, and then everything sped up. So tell me about the fundraising, how you're able to do all of this. Give me a feel for sort of where the numbers went, also amidst the pandemic too.
Yeah, so I'll start with first the lack of fundraising. First 18 months was bootstrapped. 3 24-year-olds putting together their life savings. So very lean company. But that's actually, I think, one of the things that is most important in starting a company is that you are not you're not validating the product with vanity metrics. You're not validating the product with how flashy the technology looks, or who or the different people who are beta testing it. You're validating it with the market who is actually saying, I am giving you money for this product because it is solving a real need for me. So we had to do that in the first 18 months because we didn't have enough capital to blow it on silly stuff. So we bootstrapped 210K among us three for the first 18 months, where we then raised our first seed round. And we did a pre-seed, a seed, and a Series A and a Series B. And the pre-seed, we actually brought on an investor from LA, Stage Venture Partners. And we're here in St. Louis, and a lot of St. Louis folks have said, "Oh my God, it's so hard to raise in St. Louis." And the answer is, yeah, there's not a ton of venture capital in St. Louis, but you have the entire country. You just got to go out and get it. And the way that we actually met that first investor is we were selling to a customer, and the customer said, "I don't want to buy this, but I think I got someone who might invest." And then we met that person. The person says, "I don't want to invest, but I think I know someone who might invest." And that was how we ended up getting to Stage Venture Partners. So they led a pre-seed round, $1.25 million in funding. We then did a larger seed round about a year later, $3 million funding. We then did a Series A about a year later, $10 million in funding. And just a few months ago, I think it was September, we did our Series B, $38 million in funding, putting the total at $51 million. It's been a journey. It's been a journey, and each time you do it, you're really thinking about what is the next milestone and how do I put together the package of where the business is now and where it could be. And the way that you do that raise and who you meet changes each time. But it really puts your feet to the fire and makes your business have to be accountable for the work that you've done and the vision that you've put together. And that's a really good forcing function to be advancing your thinking.
And so you've done all that. And, well, just curious, quick answer. Did this go faster than you expected? What you expected? Slower? I mean, to me, it seems fast, but are you where you expected to be?
Way faster.
Yeah. Okay. That was my guess, but and I'm sure you had big goals too. But boy, it's amazing what happens when that snowball gets going in the right direction, and suddenly that momentum and more and more and more, and then more success leads to more success. And so, with that said, the three people, I know you told me this in advance, the three of you that started it is now at what number in terms of employees?
Something like 135.
Yeah. And not just all in St. Louis too, right?
All over the country. We have, St. Louis is our home. It's our headquarters. And it's an important part of the mission of the company is to be St. Louis's, one of St. Louis's first SaaS unicorns. Made in St. Louis, headquartered here in St. Louis. And St. Louis has a metro area of 2.9 million people. Very much similar sort of population like the Kansas City metro area. And that's a big talent pool, but not a lot of tech startups, right? So if you want to be the coolest cat in the city, you have a few folks you need to compete against, but a massive talent pool that is open and available and very educated and has been well networked. So we love St. Louis. We want to give back to the city, and we want to be here for the long term. So we have about 60 people here in St. Louis, and the rest are all over the country, which we started during the pandemic. We originally were saying, no remote hiring, no remote work. It was funny because people would say, can I work remote today? And I'd say, well, maybe if you have like a dentist appointment, you can work remote, but like, a day to day, I want you in the office. And, now times have changed. And we recognize that the best way to do it is everyone needs like maximum autonomy to be able to work where they want to work, how they want to work. And then it's your responsibility as the business to make the office environment as attractive as humanly possible. So we really see the office as a product, and we see our competitor as home. How do we make the office a differentiated experience that makes people's lives better in a way that the other working environments can't?
It's a puzzle, I think, that a lot of companies are trying to figure out right now, and yet another development in this world, in large part because of the pandemic. All right, I want to ask you my baseball themed questions. First one, what is, professionally speaking, in this still young, fast moving career of yours with much, much more ahead, what's the biggest home run you've hit?
Yeah, so it's definitely Balto, broadly. I think it is not founding Balto as much as it is growing Balto, because I think anyone can found it. You can go and submit papers to the Delaware office to incorporate in a day, and you're fine. And I think that it actually happened very recently. I think it's hiring the incredible team that we've built at Balto, and there's a few hires that we've made recently that honestly are just the highlight of my career, and I'm so proud that we were able to share our story with them and get them excited about the company and ready to come do great work with us. So I think it's really building the team has been the big thing.
How about a swing and a miss, and what did you learn from it?
I would say biggest swing and a miss definitely has something to do with leadership. And I think that that's also where the biggest successes lie, but it's also where the biggest swing and misses lie. Because if you're not swinging, then you're not playing. So I would say with leadership, I'm constantly trying to develop the balance between me saying, hey, I'd love to hear what everyone has to say. Let's go around the table. Let's talk about it. Let's hash this out. Let's have a big debate. And I'm trying to balance that with, hey, folks, I just have a way that I'm seeing that we should do this, and I think we should take this route. And I'm going to put my foot down respectfully and say, this is how we're doing it this time. You could tell even saying that second bit, I could barely get those words out. And as I try to develop, my leadership skills more, I want to find times where it's collaborative, and we need to make sure we keep that awesome collaborative culture we built at Balto. And then also times where, I'm taking my vision, injecting it a little bit more into the company. And the times where, I perhaps leave that more open-ended for the company, or times where I feel like I should be stepping up and providing that guidance for everybody.
It'll be interesting to have this exact same conversation a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. It doesn't have to be with me, just about your leadership philosophies, what you've learned, because you're still a young leader. You're learning and of course we all learn every single day, but it'll just be really interesting to see kind of how you evolve as a leader, because leading a successful company at such a young age, who knows where it's going. And so I'm guessing you've got a thirst for all the books or the podcasts or whatever it is. There are a million pieces of information out there that we all can learn from. I'm sure that you're dealing with that every day.
Joel, absolutely. And I hope and expect that the next time we talk and you say, okay, what are you working on as a leader, it's something dramatically different. I say, oh, that thing that we talked about a year ago, check, done, figured that out, on to the next thing. It really is a process, and there's a million different philosophies out there. Dale Carnegie has some awesome leadership materials. Jocko Willink in Extreme Ownership has some great leadership materials. There's plenty of materials out there. The 15 Commitments to Conscious Leadership is an awesome book that I'm working through right now. So there's a lot of different philosophies. They sound very different. they tend to all be focused in the importance of owning your successes and your failures and being people-centric and being others first. And I think that that's a really good set of grounding principles that allow you to be successful.
Yeah, it's again another piece of the journey and a fun one to just be able to take all of that in. So I'm excited for you, not just where you're at, but where you're going. Final baseball theme question, small ball. What are the little things that add up to the big results in your world?
I think the most important little things is proceeding with a lack of fear. And I think that that's actually one of the biggest barriers that people have personally and professionally. And one of the barriers, when you think about why things go slow in business, why are people slow to make decisions? Why are people slow to fix issues? And I think it's because they're afraid. I think they're afraid of it not working like they want it to. They're afraid of encountering that uncomfortable situation. They're afraid of knowing something that they currently don't know that is unpleasant. They're afraid of taking a risk that might not work out. But I think that managing the fear and proceeding without fear is one of the most important things. And I think you could even think about that on a very interpersonal level. Like when you're talking to someone or you're meeting somebody, can you just go out there and be yourself and get to know them and ask them questions that, there's a little voice in your head that says, don't ask that. They might think that's dumb, but just ask it. Just ask it. And people appreciate when you're authentic. They appreciate when you're self, and they appreciate when you're confident. And I think that so long as you're balancing that with humility, proceeding without fear is one of the most important things that you can do to advance yourself personally and professionally.
Totally agree. Throw in a healthy dose of authenticity and humility every day of the week. It's going to serve you well. 4 final questions as we round the bases. Let's start with a couple of lighthearted ones first. And with a little bit of research, I heard, you never told me this, that you have been, this is what it says on my sheet, trying to grow pumpkins on your balcony for 2 years, but unable to get any of them to survive. I know this has nothing to do with Balto, but I like weird fun facts every now and then. So what's going on there?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I kill every plant I touch. But I want to be good at nurturing and taking care of plants, right? I want to be somebody who is able to grow different vegetables in a garden, somebody who can take care of plants, someone who can, I think that's important. So I keep trying to grow stuff on my balcony, and I'm looking through all the different methods of how to take care of it with the sunlight and the water and the soil. And talk about a swing and a miss. There's a lot of swings and a lot of misses, but I'm getting closer. So this year the pumpkins flowered, which is a really good next step. Last year they didn't even flower. Maybe a year from now I can adjust the sunlight a little bit, give them a little bit more soil, a little more room, and I'll have a full-grown Bernstein pumpkin patch, which is the end goal.
So who would have thought that growing a company would be easier than growing pumpkins? But I see the same persistence that you have with Balto and the pumpkins. You're going to keep after it. There's not a whole lot of give up in you, which will lead me to my second question. You mentioned starting that personal training business back when you were 18. I think you're still a certified personal trainer, and I just wanted to sort of ask how that all ties together, because I've always, and I wish I had it, I've always felt like the personal trainers, or anyone that works out on a regular basis, they have a certain discipline to dig down, and no matter what, this is what I'm doing. A lot of the rest of us are always searching for that. So there clearly, to me, is a lot in that background, I'm guessing, that has served you well today. Tell me about that, the discipline, as well as just sort of that early entrepreneurial spirit.
I think 2 things just came to mind. The first is that when you are doing any sort of fitness, you're competing against yourself. And I think the idea of being the best that you can be is something that really comes out with training, with fitness, and is something that is applicable to whatever you do in life. So I really love that mentality, and I think I cultivated a piece of that mentality in the personal training world. The second thing that came to mind is breaking big goals into smaller chunks. And the idea of breaking something big into something small, I think, is one of the most underused and powerful tools out there. You could say the goal is, lose 30 pounds. And how do you lose 30 pounds? 1 pound at a time. It's not just one day, there's 30 pounds gone. You could say, even on a single set of exercise, the goal is to complete, 12 repetitions. And I'll think about this, or 10 repetitions all the time. I'll break it down in my head to 5 quick explosive ones, 3 where I'm settling into the final pace and kind of powering it out, and then 2 final hard ones to push over the finish line. But I'll never think of doing 10. I'll think of doing 5, 3, 2. And I'll keep repeating to myself before I start 5, 3, 2, 5, 3, 2. I think that sort of mentality is completely applicable to building a company, and something that I think about every single day.
There's no question about it, and that's why I asked, because there's a very, to me, obvious tie between just that early love and discipline in terms of personal training, taking care of yourself, all those little steps. And I don't think it's a coincidence that you guys have had the success you have had to this point. Not just because you have a great product, but I think the way that you've gone and treated people, the way that you've stayed disciplined, and everything that we've talked about. Third question, then we'll get more towards the business side of things. Everyone's trying to figure out how to work in the office, how to work remote. I feel like the younger generation, I mean, you're 29, has a better grasp, or at least is more open-minded to it. That's not across the board either. I know plenty of older executives that are fully embracing the work from home or the hybrid. I know some younger executives that want everybody in the office, but for the most part, that younger generation is so much more open-minded, because they don't have the whole, well, this is the way we did it thing, which is one of the worst things, in my opinion, that you can ever say. How are you balancing that and helping create and sustain still an early culture of Balto with so many people in so many places?
The first thing I think it comes down to is choices, choices, choices. You need to give people the choice. If they feel like you're forcing their hand, or that you say, come in the office when you want, but really we expect you to be there on Tuesdays, then people are going to resent that a little bit. So I think that whether you're the younger generation, whether the older generation, people need the choice. And then I think that the answer is, well, where do you want people to gather? Because I think that the office is no longer a productivity tool. The office is a connectedness tool. I think in terms of accomplishing our day-to-day tasks, in terms of getting the meetings done that we need to get done, you can get it all done remotely. We've experienced that. We had to for a year and a half. In terms of bridging those gaps, having the conversations that you have, quote, the meeting after the meeting, the meeting that you have in the bar, the meeting that you have over dinner, the meeting that you have that you didn't really plan for, or you said, hey, how do you think that meeting went earlier today? Like, that extra little bit is something that you have in the office. So there's pros to the office, there's pros to remote, but I think the idea is in either workplace, you need to make sure that you maintain the connectedness and recognize that people can be productive wherever they are.
Final question, my walk-off, and I think it's an important one. I want to tap into some advice for you, for young entrepreneurs, because with your success, I know you're already getting your brain picked. I know people coming out of college are saying, hey, how have you done it? Which I'm sure is a really interesting thing, because you're still getting started in a lot of ways. But, and we've covered a lot of this. There's no complete secret. There's no secret formula, but there's a lot of common sense. And to me, it feels like you've checked a lot of boxes that so many forget. But what do you say to that young entrepreneur who might be afraid to go for it, who might be afraid to take that leap? So, like, to me, Mark, you completely took the leap. I mean, maybe you guys could have stayed with your other job and worked on this late at night, at 11 at night, at midnight, and still had the safety net. You gave up, it sounds to me like that safety net, and you just took the jump and you went for it. And you know that there are so many people out there, they may not be young either, by the way, they could be a lot older, that want to do that, can't quite pull the trigger. What's the advice you give?
2 things, Joel. The first is focus, focus, focus. It is one of the central questions of our time. Where do we spend our time and attention and our energy and our thoughts? And you can't be 2 places at once. And if you are, you're not going to be in either place as effectively as you would if you were just focused on one of them. So focus, focus, focus. If you're going to do it, do it. If you're not going to do it, kick butt at your current job, but don't kind of, go half in, half out on both. The second thing I would say is, and this advice really might not apply to everyone, but it's the advice that I took and it worked for me, is start a small something first right away that you have the immediate resources and tools to start with very little risk. Start something first. Like, figure out how building a business works. Be the person who has to set up the accounting. Be the person who has to do the invoicing. Be the person who has to talk to frustrated customers. Be the person who has to go sell new customers, who has to develop the marketing. Be the person who has done all that, so that by the time you're ready to build something big and build something incredibly meaningful, you've run the bases a couple times and you have that experience. So I would say your first one doesn't need to be a home run moonshot. Your first one can be, build a personal training company, build a video production company, build something that gives you the experience at building something. So I would say those are the two things that stick out to me right away.
It's great advice, and obviously worked very well for you guys. It's so impressive what you're doing, and not to mention the product. And I love too. I mean, go to the website, and I'll let everybody know if they want to learn more about Balto. You can go to the website. I'm putting it up on the screen for those that are watching. It'll be in our show notes as well, balto.ai. But when you go in there right away, the little pop-up, and it says, "Are your reps wondering what to say and how to say it? Balto can help." And as we said at the start, that's probably most companies, because we've all been through it. And so I'm excited to see where you're going, excited to have met you and to see what you're doing to this point. Marc, congratulations on all the success and much more to come with Balto. Really appreciate you spending time.
Joel, thank you so much for all the kind words, and thanks for having me on.